Hi, this is Inform TV 100. This is installment number 11 of the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave written by himself. Happy Black History Month. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. And please hit the notification bell. This is installment 11. We are reading the book of that Frederick Douglass wrote. He had written himself to give what the true life of a slave was. So, without further ado, we will will continue installment 11 where Frederick Douglass had become sick in the other installment number 10, and he had no sympathy. He could not walk. He got beat so hard that he was bleeding, and so he had made a decision to walk to the main office and report this cruel slaveholder. So we will see what will happen. In this state, I appeared before my master, begging him. He said I was supposed to look like a man. I looked like a man. He was bleeding from being beat on the head. In this state, I appeared before my master, begging him to use his authority to protect me. I told him what had happened as well as I could, and the story seemed at times to move him. He paced about as he talked, trying to justify Corey by saying he expected I deserved my beating. He asked me what I wanted. I told him I wanted a new home, for that if I lived with Covey again, that he would surely kill me. Thomas Auld ridiculed the idea that there was such danger. He said that he knew Covey, that he was a good man, and that he could not think of taking me from him. He pointed out that he would lose a whole year's wages if I did not return, that I belonged to the Coveys for a year, and that I must go back to him. He added that I must not trouble him with any more stories and that he himself would deal with me. After so threatening me, he gave me a dose of medicine, telling me that I could stay in St. Michael's that night. It was quite late by then, but that I must go back to Covey's early in the morning. He added that he would whip me if I did not comply. I remained all night and, according to his orders, started off to Covey's in the morning, weary in body and broken in spirit. Oh, I had had no supper that night nor breakfast in the morning. I reached Covey's at about 9 o'clock, and just as I was climbing over the fence that divided the neighbors' fields from ours, out ran Covey with his whip. Before he could reach me, I succeeded in getting to the cornfield where I hid in the tall corn. He seemed very angry and searched for me for a long time. He finally gave up, thinking, I suppose, that I would eventually get hungry and come out. I spent most of that day in the woods. My alternatives were to go home and be whipped to death or stay in the woods and starve to death. That night I encountered Sandy Jenkins, a slave that I knew a little. Sandy had a free wife who lived about 4 miles from Covey's. It being Saturday, he was on his way to see her and very kindly invited me to go home with him. I went with him, talking the whole matter over. I found Sandy to be a fine advisor. In his way, he told me very solemnly that I must go back to Covey, but that before I went, I must go with him into another part of the woods to dig up a certain root. I must take some of it with me, carry it always on my right side, and it would make it impossible for Covey or any other white man to whip me. He said he had carried this root for years and he had never been struck at all. I at first rejected the idea, not believing that a root could have any such power. But Sandy pleaded with me, telling me at least it could do no harm. To please him, I finally took the root and, according to his instructions, carried it on my right side. This was Sunday morning. I started for home, and as I entered the gate, out came Covey on his way to church. He spoke to me very kindly, told me to drive the pigs away from a nearby lot, and passed me by. Now, this odd conduct made me wonder if there was something to the root that Sandy had given me. If it had been any day but Sunday, I could have thought of no other explanation for Covey's conduct. All went well until Monday morning. Then the power of the root was fully tested. Long before daylight, I called to go to rub curry and feed the horses. I was called to go rub curry and feed the horses. I was glad to obey, but while I was busy in the stable throwing down hay from the loaf, Corey walked in carrying a long rope. He leaped at me, seizing my legs, and began to tie me up. As I realized what he was up to, I sprang up, and as he was still holding my legs, sprawled to the floor. Corey seemed to think he had me and could do what he pleased. But at this moment, from where the spirit came, I do not know. I resolved to fight. I seized Covey hard by the throat and stood up. He held on to me and I to him. My resistance was so unexpected that Covey seemed taken aback. This gave me courage. Covey called out to Hughes for help. Hughes came, and while Covey held me, he tried to tie my hands. While Hughes was busy with the rope, I gave him a heavy kick under the rug, on the ribs. The kick not only weakened Hughes, but Covey as well. When he saw Hughes doubled over in pain, his courage failed. He asked me if I would keep resisting. I said I would, and that he I would keep resisting. I said I would. That he had used me like a brute for 6 months. That I would take it no longer. With that, he tried to drag me to a stick that was lying outside the stable. But as he was leaning over to get the stick, I seized him with both hands by the collar and threw him to the ground. Yes, yes. Okay, back to the book. By this time, Bill had run in. Hearing Covey's cries for help, Covey shouted, "Take hold of him! Take hold of him!" But Bill said that his master had hired him out to work, not to help with me, and he left. Covey and I fought for nearly 2 hours, finally panting and gasping. He let me go, saying that if I had not resisted, he would not have whipped me so much. Actually, he hadn't whipped me at all. He had not drawn blood from me, I had drawn blood from him. The whole 6 months after that, I spent with Covey. He never laid a finger upon me. He would occasionally say that he didn't want to have to whip me again. No, I thought, you don't want to, for you will come out of it worse than you did before. From this time on, I was never again what you may call whipped. Though I remained a slave 4 more years, I had several fights but was never whipped. It surprised me for a long time that Covey did not have me taken by the police to the whipping post to be punished for the crime of raising my hand against a white man. The only explanation I can think of is this: Covey enjoyed a reputation as a first rate overseer and a Negro breaker. That reputation was of great importance to him. If he had sent me, a boy of 16, to the public whipping post, his reputation would have been lost. My term of service to Covey ended on Christmas Day, 1833, the days between Christmas and New Year's Day. were the slaves' holidays. We were not required to do any work beyond care of the farm animals. Those of us who had families a distance away were generally allowed to spend the week with them. Otherwise, the holiday was spent in various ways. The thinking and industrious ones employed themselves making brooms, mats, horse collars, and baskets. Others hunted possums, rabbits, and raccoons, but by far the greatest number of us engaged in sports, recreation, such as bull playing, wrestling, running races, fiddling, dancing, and drinking whiskey. This last activity was by far the most pleasing to our masters. In the master's eyes, a slave who worked during the holidays hardly deserved them. Such a slave was seen as one who rejected the master's gracious favor. It was thought a disgrace not to get drunk at Christmas. From what I saw of the efforts of these holidays, I believe them to be among the slaveholders' most effective ways of keeping down any spirit of rebellion. They served as safety values to carry off the rebellious spirit of enslaved humanity. They are, in my opinion, part of the gross fraud and inhumanity of slavery. They are supposedly a generous custom, but in fact, they are born of the grossest selfishness. The slaveholders loved to see the slaves spending those days in a manner that makes the slaves as glad of their ending as of their beginning. The point seems to be to disgust the slaves with freedom by plunging them into the lowest depths of immorality and self indulgence. For instance, the slaveholder not only likes to see the slave drink of his own accord, but will go to great lengths to make his slaves drunk. One way is to make bets as to which slave can drink the most without getting drunk. In this way, they make the whole multitude drink to excess. So when the holidays ended, we staggered up from the fifth of our wallowing, took a long breath, and marched to the field, feeling on the whole glad to leave what our masters had told us was freedom and enter back into the arms of slavery. I have said that this mode of treatment is part of the whole system of fraud and humanity of slavery. It is true. The idea is to disgust the slaves with freedom by allowing him to see only the abuse of it. The principle is carried out in other ways as well. For instance, a slave loves molasses. He steals some. His master goes off to town and buys a large quantity. He returns, takes his whip, and commands the slave to eat the molasses until the poor fellow is sick at the thought of it. The same technique is sometimes used to make slaves refrain from asking for more food than their regular allowance. A slave runs through his allowance and asks for more. His enraged master gives him a large amount and insists that he eat it within a given time. Then, if the slave complains that he cannot eat it, he is said to be impossible to satisfy and is whipped for being hard to please. This is Inform TV 100. Please hit the like button, hit the notification button if you haven't already done so. We are reading together the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, written by himself. Happy Black History Month. We are almost done reading the book. We will be reading chapter 12. Please hit the like button, hit the notification button, and please subscribe. You won't regret it. This is Inform TV 100. Please take care of yourself as well as others and know your numbers. Take care of your health. God bless you. And as the great Joe Madison always said, what are you going to do about it? Bye for now.